Part 27. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 262. As for the opponent's backup man, you actually know it, and even the humans on the Earth should know it. That's what you call, the metal monster. But the original purpose of this monster is not a combat machine. For as far as I'm concerned, they're just some low-level existences that can be wiped off easily. Metal monsters are inferior beings. Jia Yan seemed to have heard the most unbelievable thing in the world. A strange light appeared in his compound eyes. He looked at this woman in confusion, as if waiting for her to say, "I just said it wrong, it's a pity." Yes, the other party didn't say it. Metal monsters are really just what this woman calls lower beings. The woman turned her head, and the scene of the earthly world behind her was still slowly fading away. She said calmly, "Actually, your world was discovered by other intelligent life forms a long time ago. However, space travel is far from being as simple as people on Earth understand, and your Earth does not seem to have any important minerals, so on your Earth, those alien beings have left only some detectors and robots to continue to detect your planet. And that metal monster is one of the robots they left behind. And the other flying object must be one level above them." The woman shook her head. She didn't care whether Jia Yan understood or not, she seemed to be sure that he could understand her words. She fixed the wall like a video there. In the picture, the Earth was slowly receding. Gradually, the entire Earth appeared in this scene. The part in the dark night has bright lights. Instead of the dark night part, there are white clouds and extremely deep blue. But in the dark and deep universe, this Earth looks a little lonely, a planet in the universe. Following his main star, flying in this vast darkness. On Earth, the sky is beautiful and delicate. At that time, Jia Yan thought that it was normal and common for the whole world to be like this. But when we actually go into the universe, we realize that the scenery we see on Earth is actually rare and truly exists in the universe. It's the kind of extremely deep darkness. This kind of darkness and mystery has a different kind of attraction, but when you think of its frightening breadth, this darkness seems to have become a kind of curse, which makes people despair. A planet like the Earth is just an insignificant speck in the vast universe. Even the metaphor of a grain of sand looks down upon it. Even the solar system in which the Earth is located. Even the entire galaxy, in the incredibly vast universe. It's just an insignificant thing. However, in the solar system, the planet Earth is so small that it can't be seen from the front. For a moment, Jia Yan stared at the Earth he had just escaped from. This is the complete picture of his home planet. I have always thought that it is an incredibly vast place, the cradle of life. But she was in the background of the universe that seemed so dark that it could swallow people up. But it seems so thin. It's really just thin. Unexpectedly, the planet that countless humans have always called Mother is really so small. Jia Yan seemed to be crazy when he watched this woman leave the screen. Looking at the scenery in front of me, I was very emotional. He is not looking down on the Earth, but he is moved. A planet that is not that huge in the universe, or even in this small solar system, has nurtured hundreds of millions of human beings, as well as countless kinds of creatures that are impossible to count. But who would have thought that the mother planet that always seemed so vast was actually just a very small planet in the dark universe? After seeing Jia Yan's stunned look, the woman took steps and walked gently to the side. Then her voice slowly sounded in this background. "Your home planet of Earth is indeed very beautiful, just as beautiful as the home planets of the aliens who came here. But in fact, apart from life and strange charm, your home star didn't seem to have seen anything at that time. Scarce resources. At least there is no attraction that would make those alien beings willing to spend a huge price to transport a large number of equipment for development. After all, as I just said, space travel is not that simple. So they left behind some fully automated equipment that can conduct a more comprehensive exploration of your planet. If they obtain the resources they need, they will mine a certain sample. After confirming, they will send a message to let those alien civilizations are back and continuing their mining. Jia Yan, who was observing the scenery, was startled when he heard these words. He knew that the words spoken by women had reached the most critical point. In fact, he had roughly guessed from a series of descriptions what the woman wanted to say next. As expected. Me, the flying saucer-like flying object, and the machines all over the ground on this planet are what they left behind. And the metal monster you are talking about was actually made by those underground machines. The materials are the raw materials of your planet, and their names are actually just mining robots. What? Jia Yan was really shocked this time. The so-called metal monster, the monster that caused so much damage in the Earth world, was actually just a mining robot of alien life. Such powerful mechanical monsters are just mine things among aliens, so how strong should their own combat power be? The shock on his face was beyond words. It made the woman smile slightly. But her next words made Jia Yan breathe a little sigh of relief. But don't be too shocked. Those so-called mining robots have been manipulated by developers when they were on your Earth. These manipulations are aimed at humans on your planet, and they have been equipped with certain attack and defense capabilities. And at the time of design, I just thought that those underground machines could only produce about 1,000 mining robots at most, but I don't know if it was a program error or the influence of humans on this Earth that caused those. The machinery keeps hoarding these metal monsters, so when they explode, the number reaches an astonishing number of more than 1 million. You must know that 1 million of this kind of metal monsters with certain combat power, even among those among alien civilizations, they can also support a huge force. The terrifying number of metal monsters that can reach this level is related to a mineral they collected later. And this mineral is not only the reason why they can produce so many, but also the reason why you were born. The luster in Jia Yanfu's eyes became even more noticeable. He has always had doubts in his heart, seems to have some characteristics similar to those of those metal monsters, and they have always wanted to kill him, not only because he has been killing metal monsters on the Earth, but there are also other reasons. Now this mystery seems to be solved. He thought he might never know the mystery. The woman looked at Jia Yan, her red lips slightly raised. From the perspective of Earthlings, she was indeed an outstanding and beautiful girl, but now she was facing Jia Yan, who she thought was it's just a giant mosquito monster, so it's not that she's attracting anything, it's just the charm that naturally exudes. When she saw Jia Yan's expression changed, she seemed to be very interested in what she said. He couldn't help but smile slightly. I've said it before, this thing is both simple and complicated to say. There are some unexpected factors and a little bit of inevitability, so don't think it's incredible when you hear it. It's actually that simple. She continued to walk to the wall and flicked her finger somewhere. The wall shows the receding view of Earth, disappearing, and some weird creatures appearing on it. These creatures also seem to have limbs, but their faces appear to be very collapsed, and their heads are a little larger than their bodies. Even if they can walk, it looks very difficult. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 263. 300 years ago, there were 3 civilizations that found the planet Earth, which is what you call 3 races of aliens. There is a certain order among them, but they were all discovered nearly 300 years ago. I found you on Earth, and I discovered that this planet is a planet that has life and even gave birth to a primary civilization. For a planet with a primary civilization, the 3 civilized countries don't have much interest. War and domination are more common in your Earth science fiction movies, but in fact, for a distant civilization, it is impossible to spend too much energy to come to such a planet to rule a life group with a different life form from theirs. After all, they are too far apart. For them, it is both troublesome and unnecessary. Jia Yan's eyes were dumbfounded. He had always believed in those sci-fi movies about alien wars or conspiracy theories, but this time the woman told him that aliens had been to the Earth a long time ago, but they did not rule the Earth. Ambitions and ideas. Of course this surprised him. But it's normal if you think about it carefully. After all, as mentioned before, the entire universe has too many planets. There are actually countless planets in the shape of the Earth. If an alien life comes to the Earth, the possibility of a war is actually not high. After all, for a life form that can come to the Earth, for them who can already navigate the space, the Earth has nothing unique except for having life. If it is for the purpose of ruling the place, then they will send troops or something, and they will not see any return in the future. They will not do this. Of course, this is without profit. Jia Yan believes that no matter what the form of alien life forms is, if they want to evolve into cosmic life, the mentality of profit first must exist. Otherwise, it would be impossible to support a theory of the birth of intelligent life. So if they also value interests, and if there are enough interests on Earth to impress them, then distance will not be a problem. So the next words. He had a rough guess. However, you may also know. Those three civilizations are not very interested in the Earth, but their exploration ships still left behind some machinery. These machinery are not very precious to those aliens, and those when the machines arrived in this world, they went into the ground. Yes, they are the mysterious underground machines you have seen before. Jia Yan was shocked. This woman even knew about his affairs on Earth. It seems really mysterious. However, the woman did not notice the vigilance in Jia Yan's heart. She just continued, those machines are the wandering detection ships in the universe. Every time they arrive at a planet, they must throw out things, and the use cycles of these things are also. It only takes about 300 to 400 years, and the function is to continuously produce those mining machine robots. Then put them into mining things deep under the planet. The resources that those mining robots want to detect are a substance called stellar condensation in those alien civilizations. This kind of substance is extremely rare even in the vast universe. Only some of them exist in the universe. In the early days of the formation of star systems, part of the material separated from the stars was integrated into the planets. After hundreds of millions of years of precipitation, it was possible to be born. Those alien beings never thought that your planet would have this kind of material. However, what they didn't expect was that not long after they left, several detection machines on the Earth actually discovered this star condensation. Yes, your Earth is a planet that produces that kind of star gel, and the output is quite large. The female eyes turned around and looked at Jia Yan's faintly shining compound eyes. But at this time, Jia Yan, listening to these things, seemed to have nothing to do with him, and was not moved at all. What kind of life form, what kind of star quality, these things are very far away to Jia Yan. He even half believes in this woman's words. So there is no expression of emotion at this time. However, he could not communicate with this woman, nor could he ask his own questions. He just listened to the woman's words. Don't think that the scene Ningxi has nothing to do with you. Now I will take out a copy of the scene Ningxi. Do you think it has much to do with you? The woman shook her head, and then took out a round thing from her foam-like clothes pocket. Seeing this thing, Jia Yan's compound eyes shrank. This thing looks so familiar to him. In other words, his body also contains this thing. Blue substance. The woman's snow-white fingers, which seemed to have no trace of blood, were holding a crystal with a mysterious luster. This crystal reflected a strange blue light in Jia Yanfu's eyes. This thing that is inseparable from Jia Yan's promotion all the way is actually the so-called star condensation. This is the so-called star condensation. Jia Yan looked at the blue substance that the woman took out, and then a series of things seemed to explode in his mind. He faintly connected everything into a thread. All things are related. And the things that tie these things together. It's this blue crystal. The original factory had those magical potions because of the existence of the underground world. After he obtained the potion, he later obtained the black liquid in the factory. The composition of this liquid, now that he thinks about it, already smells like a blue substance. Next, in the underground world, he obtained the mysterious juices that exist in the brains of living creatures, and even obtained the azure substance that still plays a role in the body. Those azure substances, in Jia Yan's opinion now, are almost the best thing he has obtained in his body in so long. And those creatures in the underground world are all so powerful. Jia Yan has thought that they are related to the mysterious machinery before. Even the air extracted by the factory is related to the mysterious machinery. It's just that at that time, Jia Yan couldn't figure out what this relationship was. But now I know. Those are the countless pipes of the mysterious machine, which are basically collection pipes. They are collecting underground resources through metal monsters, and even because the blue substance, which is what women call star condensation, some of the smell or other things escape into the air, causing those creatures and the air to, all have the characteristics of azure matter. Among those characteristics are ingredients that allow organisms to mutation and evolve. The light in Jia Yanfu's eyes became even more intense. He understood a lot. But there are still secrets and puzzles in it, and he needs this woman to answer them. Giant Mosquito's expression of sudden realization was noticed by the woman who looked like an Earth girl, and his expression had an inexplicable smile. The woman took a step to the side. The shoes she wore seemed to be high-heeled shoes, which made a crisp sound when she stepped on the metal floor. Find bookstore M. This star condensation is the variable in what will happen next. Maybe you have a deep understanding of its effects and magic, so I won't say more. For biological benefits, it is equivalent to a panacea. However, it is also extremely important to technology. The alien civilization I belong to is a civilization that uses this kind of star condensate as a navigation additive. It can be said that without it, the aircraft I belong to cannot fly. Stand up. But as I said before, there are 3 back-ends sent by civilizations on Earth, and there is only one on Earth. So what will happen? That's right. It's a war. It is a pity that my civilization has not left many machines on this planet. It has built more than 10,000 mining machine robots in total. I did not expect that another civilization left here enough mining machines. More than 100. When the war broke out, we discovered that the number of their mining robots actually reached 1 million. So, we were all defeated by that civilization at once. The mining robots created by that civilization are the so-called metal monsters you are familiar with. Their energy source is actually a part of the associated ore of star condensation. This associated ore has considerable power. I remember you also used them as making a bomb, right? It's a good idea. The woman covered her mouth and smiled. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 264. Originally, if that civilization wins, it will just continue mining. Even if all the minerals under the earth are dug out, it will have nothing to do with the creatures on the surface of your earth. However, the star condensation on your earth is buried extremely deep. According to the current metal monsters, it is impossible to quickly dig out all the star condensation on your earth. So they need a huge communication device to call back the civilization exploration spacecraft that has been away for more than 300 years. And before that, because there are living things on the surface of the earth, which will definitely hinder future mining work. Therefore, they must carry out another task. That is, eradicating life, eradicating all life on the earth. Therefore, the current surface of the earth is the battle. As for my civilization and another civilization, My civilization advocates peace and does not want to see all life on Earth die, but we are powerless to stop them. I forgot to tell you that I am the representative of this generation to which my civilization belongs. As for the representatives of another civilization, they are three spider-like semi-mechanical creatures. I believe you still have an impression. Jia Yan was slightly startled. Those three spider monsters were actually the so-called representatives of another civilization. And this woman is the representative of one of the three alien civilizations. So from this point of view, the representative of the third civilization is the figure in the flying saucer, like the flying saucer she fought with. The guy almost shot Jia Yan to death with a white light attack. It seems that this hatred is not easy to end. He is a representative of civilization. It seems that the huge army of metal monsters are all under his command. If you want to fight him, you have to face so many metal monsters. Jia Yan doesn't think he can defeat such a huge army of metal monsters. As for the reason why the metal monsters have been trying to kill him, after thinking about it for a while, Jia Yan also understood that it was because he was devouring the things that the metal monsters had been mining, things related to star condensation. Especially when he absorbs a piece of azure metal. After the so-called star condensation, the metal monster wanted to kill him. After all, they are mining robots, and the monster Jia Yan is actually absorbing the minerals they want to dig. This is like cutting off people's financial opportunities. It would be strange if these metal monsters don't go crazy. No wonder the red light building made by the metal monster before. When he was able to attack this flying object, he also took a little care of his big mosquito. Jia Yan was suddenly enlightened and understood a lot. But those three spider monsters were completely dead in the battle with us. I just don't know. Did they send a signal in a special way before they died to lead their civilization's detection ship back? The woman added. Now you know our origins. I am very surprised that you, a little mosquito on the earth, can actually grow to this point in a few months. Although there is a certain amount of chance and star condensation, the role of quality is in it, but the fact that you can achieve this cannot be underestimated. Mr. Giant Mosquito. The woman finished explaining the general situation. She was a little curious, looking at Jia Yan standing in front of her. There are still some secrets or things that make Jia Yan confused in her explanation, but she is very grateful to Jia Yan for being able to give such a detailed explanation, so now even if this woman does not continue to say anything in depth, Jia Yan Iwaya didn't feel that her answer to the question was inadequate. Jia Yan himself is also confused about women. If you put it this way, his mutation and evolution are really related to these things. But even if he knew something, he couldn't talk to the other party, so at this time, Jia Yan just shook his head and said that he didn't know anything. At least from the words of the woman, he knew that the other party was not clear that he was a reincarnated soul of a human being. By the way, I forgot that you can't communicate. The woman looked at the giant mosquito's huge eyes. In this dark space, such a beautiful woman looked at the giant mosquito monster, and there was a feeling between beauty and giant mosquito monster. The eerie feeling of the beast. But if you understand things, you won't have this idea, but you will have the idea that both of them are beasts, both are inhuman beings, and they are all monsters. At this time, Jia Yan had not thought about killing this woman. Since she dared to appear in front of Jia Yan, she obviously had a certain degree of safety. After all, this place was inside the opponent's aircraft. If Jia Yan did something a bad move, he doesn't think he can succeed so easily. So I am still looking at this woman. Although the other party has told so many secrets, his essential request has not changed, and that is to take her to the ground. His family is there. The metal monsters are so powerful now that even this flying stick aircraft was beaten by them and escaped from the earth. But Jia Yan cannot give up his family. So he wants to go back. The woman seemed to be able to analyze what Jia Yan wanted to say, and she let out a long sigh at this time. Mr. Giant Mosquito, I brought you into my aircraft just to discuss something with you. Then I ask you to work with me to stop the civilization below from transmitting signals and destroy their signal relay base. If you can do this, when I call back the detection ship of my civilization, you will persuade me to they will protect all life on Earth and even return the Earth to you after mining is completed. What do you think? Jia Yan was startled. He didn't know what the signal relay base was, and he felt that his combat power was not worth mentioning against these powerful aircraft. However, the owner of this aircraft made a request for help at this time. He stared at the woman strangely for a moment, as if asking, "I'm so weak, do you need my help?" Mr. Giant Mosquito, you may not know that you have now embarked on the path of an evolved beast. Although you are still a relatively weak evolved beast, as long as you have some help from me, your strength can quickly increase, and I can come up with some evolution methods of evolutionary beasts and give you reference materials and teaching materials. With those teaching materials, it is not impossible for you to become a great starry sky beast one day. How about this? Do you accept the deal? After the woman finished speaking, she looked at Jia Yan with a charming smile on her face. Evolved beast? Starry sky beast? What is this? Jia Yan looked at this woman. He felt that after listening to so many topics, he seemed to have heard the most important thing to himself. What is the so-called evolved beast? And what is that starry sky beast? After he was puzzled for a moment, he saw that the woman had reached out and a book with dozens of pages, without knowing why, passed directly through a metal wall and was suspended in the air, on the palm of her hand. Then the woman smiled and put the book in front of Jia Yan. This is the information about the evolved beast. As for the starry sky beast, you don't need to know it for now. If you are willing to fight with me, then I will teach you how the evolved beast evolves and the skills you can learn. After the woman finished speaking, her body slowly stepped back with a smile on her face. The metal wall behind her automatically made a hole for one person to pass through. Jia Yan passed through the gap and saw the gap. Next to it are colorful lights full of technological colors. My name is Delphine. If you'd thought about it, I'd be there. Her voice gradually disappeared behind the metal wall. Jia Yan looked at the closed metal walls, and then looked at the video of the wall showing the Earth slowly moving away. The other party didn't seem to end the scene of the Earth moving away. After some time, the Earth has become only the size of a basketball. Jia Yan let out a long sigh in his heart. He has not come back to his senses after such a series of things. Only now can he finally calm down and think carefully. According to her, this woman is a representative of one of the 3 alien civilizations that came to Earth, and it seems that she has the greatest say among the forces left behind by his civilization on Earth. In other words, apart from this aircraft, the combat power left by that civilization on the Earth may not be anything else, so it even wants to fight for the combat power of a monster like Jia Yan. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 265. But at this time, Jia Yan was in the opponent's aircraft. What would happen if he didn't agree? The other party threw him outside and he died. After thinking about it, Jia Yan felt that he should not think so much first. He had gradually understood the things on the Earth, but at this time, he knew that these were useless and would not change the situation in any way. And if what this Daphne said is right, in addition to the threat of metal monsters, there are also things about those 3 civilizations. Although she only wanted her so-called detection ship to come back, judging from the other party's tone, this detection ship is definitely not as simple as a detection ship. Perhaps combat power can play a decisive factor on this Earth. Why are you thinking so much? Now I have no room for backhandedness in front of her. Let's see what this so-called evolutionary beast is first. Jia Yan's compound eyes relaxed slightly. For him during this period, it's not that easy. After all, this is the first time Jia Yan has been in such a helpless situation since his rebirth. Although that Daphne seemed to be friendly, he didn't dare to completely believe it. Jia Yan stretched out one of his front legs and picked up the book in front of him. The book is obviously a current one, with some text written in Chinese. But there is no cover, just introduction and explanation. Evolved Beast, the 38th Imperial Creature Sequence, the 97th Threat Sequence. In the first line, Jia Yan saw this line of font. This information was obviously translated by Daphne according to the text of a certain information and then handed over to Jia Yan. What is an empire? What is a biological sequence? What is the danger sequence? Jia Yan read it carefully and slowly. In this illusory and dim space, the light seems to be unnecessary. When Jia Yan reads the words, it seems that the words are not affected by the dim light, which is very magical. He continued reading. And this magical flying object was flying slowly in the deep and mysterious space. He said it was slow, but in fact, his speed was gradually increasing. Faster and faster. Just when Jia Yan was reading those materials, he raised his head slightly. But next, his compound eyes were just astonishing. Then the big mosquito's previously calm compound eyes showed a look of shock. He saw on the video of the metal wall of the aircraft that the Earth was gradually receding. It turned into a round thing the size of an orange. Near the aircraft, there is a huge celestial body. It appears near the video screen. It has huge craters, large and small, one after another, and the bright rays of the distant sun shine down. The crater is illuminated brightly. This is... Jia Yan's heart was trembling slightly. This is the moon. How fast this aircraft must be. For a while, he didn't even feel much acceleration. Already reached the moon. This is the moon that humans can see every night and look up at. Jia Yan felt what he was going through. It was simply too much science fiction, and it was a bit hard for him to wrap his head around. Before, it just became like this step by step. There is no real feeling at all. But now when I look up, I see the moon that I never thought I could see so close. Then it dawned on me. What he is experiencing now may be something he can recall as a legendary event in the future. But after Jia Yan looked at the moon that was receding at a fast speed next to him, he turned his attention to the book in front of him. He had also thought about where this aircraft was going, but at this time, he did not have the ability to ask, nor did he have the ability to disobey the other party. Presumably this aircraft is going to the so-called signal relay base. Anyway, when you get to the place, the other party will call you. Jia Yan didn't think too much and just continued reading. At this time, almost all of his body and mind were attracted by the depiction of the so-called evolved beast. He didn't know where this information came from, but the evolved beast depicted on it was very similar to some of his characteristics. This kind of evolved beast is a kind of life that can appear on every planet with life in the universe. Jia Yan first wanted to laugh at the various planets with life mentioned in the book. People on Earth have been looking for alien life for so many years, but they still have no clues. This article actually says various planets with life. It makes it seem like there are many planets with life. But he suddenly realized that this information was given to him by Daphne. The other party's background is a civilization with strong technological capabilities. If this civilization has many life planets in the universe, it must be close to the same. If we can't find any extraterrestrial life on Earth, it's just because our methods aren't strong enough. So Jia Yan takes this description of the many life planets in the starry sky as correct. Then there is the depiction of the so-called evolved beasts. These evolved beasts appear randomly on various planets, and there are many possibilities for creating them. However, among those possibilities, the only indispensable point is that those evolved beasts have powerful devouring abilities. Some of them use the most basic oral swallowing method, some use certain unique organs of the body to swallow, and some even use fusion methods. The evolution process of these evolved beasts is very fast. Some of them devour excellent things in the initial stage, and then their power will develop by leaps and bounds. The most representative of these is the evolved beast that devours the star condensate in the planet. If an evolved beast has just become an evolved beast, it will take a long time to develop a certain combat effectiveness. However, during this period, if the evolved beast is given star condensate by chance or artificially, then as long as he can survive that, the star's powerful energy agitation has about a 1/10 chance of surviving, and its combat effectiveness will jump directly. If it is properly trained, taught and learns some of the abilities of the evolved beast, its combat effectiveness will be on the table. At that time, these evolved beasts will be qualified and powerful evolved beasts. After some training or a long period of evolution, these evolved beasts will become the ultimate appearance of the evolved beasts and transform into another state of life. That is, the starry sky beast. This article does not describe much about the starry sky beasts. It only said that even the weakest starry sky beasts are a great threat to this so-called empire. If they are not resisted with all their strength, they may be possible. It destroyed several administrative stars and paid a huge price to eliminate it. In fact, among these so-called starry sky beasts, there are extremely powerful ones. The empire has not seen many, but other civilizations have recorded that some powerful civilizations, even more powerful than this empire, are all in the starry sky, destroyed by the blows of giant beasts. Therefore, for the combat power of the starry sky beast, Please is so powerful that it ranks third in the Empire's dangerous order, only behind the Empire's two rival cosmic civilization races. Although the evolved beasts are not very powerful and the danger level is not very high, they may evolve into real starry sky beasts in the future. Although the chance is as slim as finding a needle in a haystack, as long as there is this possibility, the research on evolved beasts will be. It has always been listed as an important matter by the Empire. Not only do they want to study the secret of the power of the starry sky beast, but what they want to do more is to control this power in their own hands. Even if they cannot turn the civilized races in the Empire into possessing the power of a starry sky beast, they must at least be able to control a powerful starry sky beast in their hands. When the time comes, they will have more power when facing the two hostile rival empires. Great confidence. This evolved beast is awesome. But what's even more powerful is the giant starry sky beast. And no matter how you look at it, I seem to have entered the path of the so-called evolved beast. Could it be possible that I can become that incomparably powerful beast that even appears on paper, a life that the Empire fears? Jia Yan read all the documents word for word without stopping, and then he let out a long breath. The light in his compound eyes was as bright as ever. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 266. In the past, the road that Big Mosquito walked was very difficult, and the road ahead required him to figure it out himself. Even though his strength was constantly improving, when he reached this point, Jia Yan himself had no idea about his future path. A little confused. But after seeing this document, his path seemed to suddenly open up. Extremely open. That indescribably powerful starry sky beast is his future goal. I must learn this skill, and when Daphne showed these things to me, she also wanted to teach me these two skills. After reading the explanation of the evolved beast, he understood the reason why Daphne showed him these things. Evolved beasts have a unique characteristic, which is also a skill that the unknown empire analyzed from evolved beasts after research. That is the most unique thing, and what Jia Yan needs most urgently now, brainwave skills. This brainwave skill is, to put it bluntly, a way of using the power of brainwaves. And this skill has an accompanying ability, which is what Jia Yan needs most at the moment, communication ability. In fact, biological brains have power, that is, brain waves. They have been used extensively clinically in medicine and biology on Earth. However, biological brain waves can develop special powers. That is, it's still in the exploratory stage. But this is really not a strange phenomenon. Officials in the Star-Spangled Banner country have been studying this matter for a long time. The principle behind the activation of ESP, or ESP for short, is to obtain certain special powers through certain characteristics of the brain. People with special powers emerge endlessly on the Earth. And in every country on the planet, there are national-level studies on these characters and phenomena. Generally speaking, those people are either born with or after a certain period of brain training, and become characters with special functions. So through brainwave exercise. Something to gain special abilities. Even on Earth, it is not a strange thing. However, because the Earth does not understand much about the human brain, even a person with a special function has their own special functions affected by their emotions and physical conditions. As a result, their activation success rate is not high, so that they cannot become a well-known thing to the public. Now Jia Yan sees the introduction of the evolved beast. There are descriptions of skills like this. Moreover, this description explains that the evolved beast has special abilities in brainwaves due to its unusual talent. It has unusual advantages, so most evolved beasts will live a long life. Gradually self-initiate the use of brainwaves, but there are some individuals who evolve too quickly because they have no time to think about other things. Therefore, there will be people who do not have the ability to master brainwaves even when they reach the stage of starry sky beasts. And Jia Yan himself. He is just a big mosquito that evolves too fast. At this time, let alone his brainwave ability, even the research idea of this plan has never appeared. And now after he saw the description of this skill, just reacted. That mysterious flying saucer used that kind of sonic attack when it was in Qinghai Lake, which made Jia Yan feel ecstasy several times. That's how brainwave attacks work. And Daifuni on this flying stick aircraft used a long-distance sound transmission method to directly transmit the sound to Jia Yan's mind when she fought with the flying saucer. This is probably also a kind of brain power. How to use waves. And the brainwave methods they used were actually learned from the evolved beasts. Wouldn't it be faster and easier for Jia Yan to learn? So the first thing he decided to learn was this brainwave skill. In fact, the evolved beast has other skills, and there are also many very useful skills, but Jia Yan is not tempted at this time. For him, things are a bit ahead of his time. After all, a big mosquito that was still on the Earth before, flying around and fighting, has now inexplicably arrived in the void of the universe. This thing itself is incredible. He was not confused, but calmed down at this time. It was already very rare to calm down in this place and read the so-called documents. The first thing is to study this so-called brainwave skill. Jia Yan made a decision, and his body suddenly stood up in the dark place. As if induced by something, the moment he stood up, a large hole suddenly opened in the metal wall opposite Jia Yan, and the figure of Daifuni appeared behind the large hole. She didn't say anything, but she had something that looked like a book in her hand. Putting the book on the ground, she continued walking towards the hole in the metal wall. Jia Yan watched her leave, his compound eyes flashing with faint luster. When the woman completely disappeared behind the big hole, the big metal hole slowly closed, and the dreamlike sci-fi scenery behind it also disappeared. He slowly put your eyes on the book on the ground. This is another book translated into Chinese, but compared to the previous one which only had a few dozen pages, this one is much thicker, at least 100 pages long. It seems like it will be a long learning process. When Jia Yan read this book, he didn't feel too discouraged. Instead, he looked at the external video interface. The space scenery outside has become very dark and deep. The distant moon has gradually disappeared from sight, and the appearance of the Earth and the Moon has become smaller and smaller. They seem to be becoming members of the pitch-black darkness in the deep universe that can no longer be seen. They are celestial bodies that do not emit light and disappear so easily. He couldn't see it anymore, and it seemed he couldn't even find his way home. This feeling of being so far away from home that it couldn't even be measured by distance made Jia Yan feel a little panicked. However, he suppressed all his feelings deeply in his heart, picked up the book on the ground, adjusted his mood, and slowly started reading. It is a dark place with good oxygen content and moderate temperature. At least for large mosquitoes, it is a good place to read. This is indeed a description of brainwave skills and an entry-level plan, but it seems that there have been certain modifications for Jia Yan. After all, De Funi knows that Jia Yan is the so-called evolved beast, so at this time, directly it is to provide some directional teaching methods based on some of his characteristics. Evolved beasts generally have extremely strong brainwave power. The source of their power seems to be innate. However, there is a saying that due to the special nature of their growth, when they are young, their brainwaves are abnormal. Compared with ordinary creatures, they can use brainwave skills several times or even dozens of times more efficiently than ordinary intelligent creatures that learn brainwave skills. This article is based on the development of brainwave skills based on the advanced analysis of the evolved beast's brainwave skills. It is collectively referred to as brain technology. Brain skill is a skill that can greatly develop the brain's ability. This skill can guide the brain's ability in the body of a creature, but the effect is divided into strengths and weaknesses, and talents also exist in each empire race. Due to differences, coupled with the talent gap among individuals, the specific progress will vary from person to person. Jia Yan looked at the records in the book, and the inexplicable look in his compound eyes was even more gleaming with exploration. He completely forgot about being away from the earth and forced his mind to focus on the book in front of him at this time. He knows that this thing may be another creation of his, and it is also a necessary thing for him to open a more powerful path in the future, so he is studying extremely seriously now. What Jia Yan didn't know was, in another part of the aircraft, Daphne is looking at the giant mosquito monster she invited onto the aircraft. As expected, this monster fully understands the Chinese language of the people on Earth. In fact, I only knew from observing him for a long time that he can understand the Chinese language of the people on Earth. I didn't expect that it can be done by reading. This matter is very strange. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 267. This woman, who didn't know what existed, frowned slightly. For her, she was roughly sure that the big mosquito on the other side of the aircraft should be an evolved beast born on the Earth. That's right, but she couldn't explain that this giant mosquito, which is obviously only a few months old, can understand the language of the people on Earth. In fact, Jia Yan's surveillance of this flying stick aircraft was only started in the Japanese kingdom. At that time, the big mosquito attracted the attention of the world. The owner of this aircraft, De Funi, noticed that the big mosquito might be her in the empire, the evolved beast mentioned in the book records, so Jia Yan's subsequent actions were monitored to a certain extent. But she didn't know much about what happened before that. She only knew through analysis that the places where the mosquito had been and that there were some opportunities in that underground world. But these cannot explain why this giant mosquito monster can understand or even read human language and writing. Perhaps communicating with an evolved beast in its primary stage has never happened in the history of the empire. When those evolved beasts have evolved to a very high level, even if they can communicate, they already have the character of a strong person. It is probably extremely rare for this giant mosquito monster to be able to communicate now. Well, even in the empire, evolved beasts are still very mysterious objects of investigation. Since this big mosquito understands language, I don't need to think so much. I only need to enhance his combat power and use it for me in the future. That would be better. Thing. This woman no longer thinks about Jia Yan's weirdness, she thinks about what's next. 300 years have passed since I was created on this earth. For me, the earth is not my most ideal place. The world of the empire is my ideal place to live. This incident is a crisis, but it's also an opportunity. If the Empire finds out about my discovery of astral matter on this Earth, will they give me the status of a normal resident of the Empire? If that's possible, that would be the best. Thinking of that huge civilization that can only be seen in videos and picture articles from aircraft, this woman showed a strong look of yearning. However, this expression did not last long, and her expression became calm again. The woman's fingers clicked left and right on a seemingly transparent light screen in front of her eyes. And under her clicks, the aircraft continued to accelerate. And when she was operating the aircraft, don't forget to take a look at the observation screen next to her. On this screen, there is a huge monster. He looked very intently at the book in front of him. The woman smiled slightly. Jia Yan is indeed immersed in learning. But this time it was different from when I saw the information on the so-called evolved beasts. While he was looking at the books in front of him, he was still in his body. Experience the various explanations and practices in the books. Brain waves are a kind of power originating from the brain. This kind of power has obvious traces in evolved beasts whose brain energy is already very powerful. However, they activate these powers instinctively. Therefore, in the direction of exercise and progress there are many detours and unscientific methods. The purpose of this textbook is to allow the people of the Empire, whose brain talents are far lower than those of evolved beasts, to have the opportunity to gain or enhance their brain power through practice. Jia Yan is reading slowly. The first chapter is an explanation of unlocking the so-called brainwave power. This explanation is very difficult to understand for people who have not experienced the power of brain waves. However, after seeing the above description, Jia Yan knew that when he was attacked by the sound waves of the flying saucer, the power was brainwave power. So he understood the above description immediately. The primary stage of brainwave power can be understood as a way of resonantly interfering with things through brain waves. Jia Yan is trying his brain power to see if he can interfere with brain resonance. No, the feeling of this power is just the pure use of strength. It is said above that the opening of this power is a process of releasing the power of one's brain. The whole process feels like an excessive flow of clear spring. It means. Although I still don't understand what the so-called clear spring water means, but it is definitely not the feeling of hitting the brain with power. Jia Yan found the first step very difficult. He continues to work hard. Earth. Today is a day that countless people will remember. Just when the setting sun of Huaxia Kingdom was about to disappear completely, lines of red light appeared in the sky. These red lights seemed to be chasing something in the sky. It is said that some witnesses saw a flying stick-shaped flying object in the sky that has appeared frequently around the world. This flying object seemed to be those red lights. Attack target. However, the aircraft did not seem to be attacked. And just when humans are surprised, the metal monster's attack, which had stopped for more than half a month, started again. A large number of metal monsters were arranged in an army formation, marching quickly towards where the humans were. These metal monsters are no longer everywhere like before, but they are gathering on the ground to form an extremely large group, marching towards the big cities they have never touched before, in full force. Earth world, emergency. But at this time, every major country and nuclear-armed country no longer cares about international treaties, and for the current Earth, it has become a mess. The status and role of the United Nations have also been reduced, weakened to the extreme. So various types of missiles, nuclear bombs, and even weird weapons that have never been exposed were all used. Missiles attacked the army of metal monsters one after another. The gathering of metal monsters is also a good thing for humans. At least they no longer rack their brains for the metal monsters to scatter. They cannot attack the metal monsters on a large scale. It is not cost-effective to just use a cannon to kill mosquitoes. Things. Now that the metal monsters are gathering together, if there is a powerful weapon that can hit them, the damage caused to the metal monsters will definitely be huge. But at this moment, the thing that humans are most worried about happened. Shots of relatively thin red light seemed to be shooting out from all over the earth in the sky. They shot at the bodies of those attacking weapons, and each shot was extremely accurate. Even if the shot was not accurate, there would be follow-up units that continued to attack, overwhelming. Under the attack and interception of these red lights, the weapons launched by the Earth's army almost never succeeded. However, the Stars and Stripes country succeeded in one case, and the China country succeeded in one case. They successfully bombarded an area densely populated by metal armies. But the images displayed by the satellite made the military leaders of the Earth world speechless one by one. The army of metal monsters attacked by the Star-Spangled Banner Nation was an army of 10,000 metal monsters in total, and they were indeed dense, almost all gathered in a small area of 1 square kilometer. This missile hit the center of this army of metal monsters. A huge explosion sounded in that place, and the mushroom cloud was several times the size of the atomic bomb dropped by the Star-Spangled Banner country on Japan. This shows the power of this atomic bomb. It is also several times more powerful than the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. The Stars and Stripes nation also has more powerful nuclear weapons, but those nuclear weapons have either not been approved for use or have been intercepted halfway. This only remaining nuclear weapon has placed almost all the hopes of the military. The scene in Huaxia Kingdom was similar, but what they attacked was a small city that had been deserted. This small county-level city was completely occupied by metal monsters. Today, a large number of people gathered from nowhere. There are at least 10,000 of them in the city. Fortunately, a nuclear weapon from China broke through the interception of those red lights and bombarded the heads of these metal monsters. 2 huge mushroom clouds are rising slowly on the surface of the Earth. But what made their 2 mushroom clouds possible was the power of more nuclear objects that were hit by those red lights in the air and exploded. It can be said that there are countless explosions of light and mushroom clouds. They are inconspicuous. However, it carries the hope of the military and mankind. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 268. These 2 mushroom clouds are different from the mushroom clouds caused by other nuclear weapons in that they place a glimmer of hope on the part of the military and mankind as a whole, hoping that they can use the ultimate Jedi weapon in their hands to achieve a great feat of annihilating metal monsters on a large scale. The determination of all humans to fight against metal monsters has become even higher. However, the smoke cleared. The clouds were blown away by the huge force. On the ground, the countless metal monster armies were knocked away one by one by the huge nuclear power, and fell like dumplings in the air. However, except for those rare parts at the center of the explosion energy, the metal monsters that were knocked away rolled one by one and got up from the ground. It was as if the power of explosions and nuclear radiation had no effect on them. The combined bombardment damage of the 2 nuclear warheads only resulted in the deaths and injuries of less than 1,000 metal monsters. Moreover, this is a situation where metal monsters gather in extreme numbers. The Earth's army was even more shocked. Maybe they don't know that these metal monsters are just mining robots left by some alien civilizations on the Earth. If they knew, they would probably be more surprised. But enough surprises for now. Even large-scale nuclear weapons attacks, these metal monsters can easily withstand. What should people on Earth do now? There is no way. There is really no other way to face the attack of metal monsters. The metal monsters didn't seem to be moved by the attacks from the Earthlings. The large forces they had assembled were still heading towards various cities quickly. The attack is about to begin. After this attack, it will be decided whether human beings on the Earth will change from the original master to the edge, or whether they will still occupy the position of master. It's true that metal monsters are extremely strong. But they have disadvantages. Or it's because the number is too small. There are only more than 1 million metal monsters in total, which is a huge contrast to the 6 billion humans. And if all humans rise up in resistance, the outcome of this war will be. Maybe it will also have an intriguing ending. After all, Earthlings are not fools, on the contrary. The fact that humans have been able to dominate the entire planet for so long just proves that humans are extremely powerful. Their ability to learn in war. Extremely fast. Although the metal monsters have the advantage, and maybe they will have the advantage in the future, but in the face of the huge number of humans, their victory may not be that simple. Earth humans. This huge and extremely intelligent race is about to explode with its extremely powerful heritage. And the indomitable and unyielding racial power. Great War. Expand. What happens on the Earth seems to be extremely distant to the giant mosquitoes in the universe. In fact, it is also extremely remote. Jia Yan, who occasionally looked up to watch the video screen, could no longer see the scenery of the Earth. It seemed that the surroundings were always so dark. Even the speed of the flying stick aircraft was so fast that Jia Yan was stunned. But at this time, it seemed that he also didn't move, as if the surrounding scenery had stopped. Jia Yan didn't know where Daifuni wanted to take him, but it looked like the so-called signal relay base. Before, he thought that no matter how far away the so-called signal relay base was, it couldn't be too far from the Earth, but now he realized that his idea was completely wrong. 2 days have passed, and the distant voyage seems to be continuing for a while. Jia Yan looked at the scenery in the video and missed his family for a while, then he continued to focus on the paper in front of him. But at the next moment, Jia Yan suddenly felt an inexplicable power in his mind, and he quietly reacted. Me. A strange voice suddenly appeared in this dim environment. This voice sounded like a male voice, and the voice was rich and majestic. Jia Yan seemed to be frightened. He looked around in surprise. After he found nothing strange, he withdrew his gaze in confusion. He touched his head curiously with one of his slender front legs, as if wondering whether the sound was really coming from him. Just now, after 2 days of training, Jia Yan has initially figured out what the so-called power of brainwaves is. This power seems to be something that strives to materialize the thoughts in his mind. If this is any different from the superpower he imagined, it is that this power is really difficult to control, so for Jia Yan, although the mystery of this power has been reduced a lot, it is not that easy to use it. Just before, he worked hard to release the power of brainwaves according to the description in the book. What he is doing is to use the power of his brain to interfere with the surrounding air according to the method recorded in the book, causing the air to vibrate, and finally producing sound. This is the simplest way to use the power of brain waves. Air is the most common carrier, and the force required to interfere with them does not require much power. But even with such a simple method of using brainwave power, Jia Yan has tried it no less than 100 times before, but never succeeded. But Jia Yan thinks that's normal. After all, he has just come into contact with this so-called brainwave skill. If it can be successful so easily, would it be strange? This thing is like physical exercise. Without a period of familiarity, how can it be successful? Jia Yan has made plans to train for a long time. But just as he continued to train himself, a strange feeling came to his mind, and then he heard a faint sound in the air according to the power of his intervention. Me. This is the sound Jia Yan made for the first time. Jia Yan's compound eyes seemed frozen. He looked at the air around him. At this time, he had an unreal feeling. It's funny to say that, seeing so many weird things, even entering this aircraft and people entering the universe, he didn't feel too unreal. But now that he heard himself making a little sound again, he felt unreal. After all, a big mosquito who has been accustomed to not being able to deal with others, unable to communicate, and always seems to be living alone even in the wide world, now actually hears the voice of his own words again, even if the voice of the words has no real meaning. The words above are still fundamentally different, but they are still a way of speaking after all. So Jia Yan had that incredible sense of unreality at this time. Not long after, he quickly put aside other thoughts and remembered the feeling of the sound just now. I, yes, 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 yes. Jia Yan found that he had indeed made a sound. The previous method was not wrong. Under the intervention of his brain, the air made a vibrating sound. In fact, it had already vibrated before. It was just that when he trained before, those methods were different. If you make a mistake, even if you shake the air, you can still make a sound. It can only cause a certain amount of airflow, just like a breeze blowing. The big mosquito focused entirely on studying, so he didn't notice the slightest change in the air. But now he just followed his wishes and made a difficult sound like a baby learning to speak. Really learned it? I can really talk. Jia Yan felt indescribable joy in his heart. Talking is an extremely common thing for ordinary people, but in the eyes of the current big mosquito, it is a huge surprise, so the big mosquito's joy at this time is beyond words. He started training continuously. I am suitable, I hold, I am, one by one. It was easy to learn, but once he really got started, Jia Yan found that it was extremely difficult. He tried several times before he could barely speak a few words. Moreover, the use of these words seemed to consume a lot of energy on his part. It didn't take long for Jia Yan to feel a little pain in his head, and he seemed to be unable to concentrate. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 269. Subscriptions have dropped. Please subscribe to the official version. He remembered the words in the description of the brainwave skill. This thing was a normal sign of overuse. After only a few times of use, Jia Yan felt that it was too much. Jia Yan felt a little emotional. It seems that he still needs to exercise his brainwave power more in the future. Otherwise, he will be tired after just saying a few words. Wouldn't that mean he would be unable to communicate? He didn't know that his performance was completely seen by Daphne on the other side. At this time, this woman had a strange light in her eyes. It only took just 2 days to complete the initial brainwave power learning. Is this talent unique to the evolved beasts? No. Even the evolved beasts cannot have such a powerful talent. This talent is unique to the evolved beasts. Mr. Giant Mosquito seems to be indeed a unique existence. If he knew that it took me at least 3 years to learn this step, and then it took me 300 years to convert the power of brainwaves into attack power, he would probably find it incredible. Daphne looked at Jia Yan on the video. At this time, the big mosquito seemed to be a studious student. He often read books and then used his brainwave skills on the air. It seems that wanting to communicate with others is a huge wish of his. Even Daphne could see the impatient look. Well, since he has mastered the brainwave communication method so quickly, I am even more looking forward to what happens next. I hope I made the right choice. Daphne looked at the rapid progress of Big Mosquito with eyes. The strange light is even worse. The aircraft continued to fly in the dark space. Although everything in the aircraft seems to be the same as on the Earth, not only the air, but also the gravity and humidity are very similar to the Shanghai area where Jia Yan came out before. This comfortable environment made him forget that he was in space. The place where the aircraft was traveling rapidly was a place without air and gravity. Even material things. They are all extremely rare vacuum states. And this lonely aircraft, despite several battles, was still extremely fast. And at this time, his speed is still accelerating. Accelerate, 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 accelerate. It seems this speeds up. There is no end. His speed was so fast that Jia Yan could not estimate how fast it was. But at this time, for the entire universe, for this dark and deep mysterious world, it seems that this extremely fast speed is just a trivial thing. Infinitely vast universe. It seems to be something that kills everything. He looks so mysterious and beautiful, but he is vast. It will also make all those who want to explore her secrets come back in vain. No matter how fast. In front of the universe that is counted in light years, there is no feeling at all. Its hugeness makes any living thing despair. But Jia Yan didn't notice so much at this time. In other words, the level of life has not reached a certain level and it is impossible to understand this despair. The more powerful the civilization, the more desperate it is for this despairing vastness. There is a saying in the laws of the universe that people on Earth already know, but civilizations that set foot in the universe know it more clearly and more profoundly. That is, space equals time. In front of the vast space, you have no time. Even if the speed can reach the fastest speed in this universe theory, which is the speed of light, there is nothing you can do. You can only use countless time to slowly explore this vast space. Only the mysterious universe will reveal a veil to you, but when you discover the face under the veil, you have to find out in despair that there are more faces to her. You can't find it even if you spend your whole life or travel to the universe. Even at the end of life, it is impossible to explore the mysteries of this universe. Jia Yan thought that the current speed of the aircraft was beyond his imagination, but Dai Funi, who was piloting the aircraft, felt a little helpless after looking at the data of her aircraft. However, she knew that the flying stick aircraft was, after all, a vehicle that had not been maintained for 300 years and had been involved in a battle before. Now it was in dilapidated condition and no longer looked as fast as before. It was at its peak at best. Data at 2/3 the speed. Looking at it like this, it will take us almost a month of sailing to reach that place. I hope that in this month, this so-called Mr. Mosquito will improve a little, at least there will be no problem in communication, so that future battles can be get on with it. Daphne thought about these things, then put all her thoughts aside and operated the aircraft with peace of mind. I am a mosquito, a big mosquito, mosquito. Jia Yan is still making his own attempts in the other space. His skills are improving very quickly, so in a few days, Big Mosquito slowly mastered the pronunciation of more words. But the articulation is still not very standard, just like a real child learning to speak. But for someone who has always had language skills in his previous life, speaking clearly is one thing. The first thing he needs to break through now is actually the optimization and understanding of pronunciation. Another 3 days passed. The so-called brainwave power is in ZI in the brain. Jia Yan faced the book in front of him and kept telling everything he saw. There is a faint male voice echoing in the air, and the male voice at this time has been greatly improved compared to the past few days. Although the rich feeling is still there, it is no longer dull, and the timbre of the voice is also much more saturated. For a creature that has only mastered the brainwave pronunciation method for a few days, this is a huge improvement. Jia Yan also saw that it was written in the textbook that residents of the empire who learned the power of brain waves, as long as they mastered the ability to produce sonic sounds with brain power within a year, would be an extremely powerful genius and could enter the so-called empire for free. Study at Taito University. As for Jia Yan himself, it took him less than a week to not only learn the way of pronunciation using mental power, but now he has almost reached the level of communicating with others. You must know that just learning is not the same as mastering. However, he did not relax. He also knew that it was impossible for him to study in a school in this empire. Even if he shows that he has no ill intentions towards the so-called imperial civilization, it won't work. After a few days of reading, Jia Yan has a preliminary understanding of this empire. This empire is obviously the huge civilization to which Dai Funi belongs. This civilization seems to have many races, and these races are some of the planets occupied by the empire, the natives of those planets and so on. Daphne said that their civilization is not interesting to the Earth. That is really the literal meaning. This civilization seems to be very bloated and has too many civilizations. As a result, they have no attack on distant civilized planets, even if that civilization has certain productions. The idea, and this imperial civilization, after understanding many civilizations, understood that the star field they could understand had many civilization levels and strengths, which were not weaker than their existence, and it seemed that there were more distant places than they also wanted powerful starry sky civilization forces, but because they were too far apart, there was no communication between the two. These things are well written in books. After all, the books Jia Yan reads seem to be some kind of official textbooks, so in addition to regular textbooks, there are also some little knowledge and curious events interspersed in them. Increase learners' desire for knowledge. Jia Yan understood many things from this little knowledge, such as the so-called evolutionary beast, which is the originator of this kind of mental ability. Several civilizations have found inspiration and research directions from evolutionary beasts, and then transformed their own. The research direction of brain power was determined, and huge progress was made after that. After several large-scale civilizations communicated with each other, the mature system today was gradually formed. And this is why Jia Yan knows that even if he swears allegiance to this so-called empire, it will be useless. Because these civilizations can treat the aborigines of an attacking civilized planet as subjects, but they will never treat an evolved beast as a subject. Evolved beasts are either pets or enemies. They will never be the same kind. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 270. From this point of view, this Daphne is a bit strange. Because she was born on Earth, her way of thinking is a bit different from that of the empire she is in. Or is she hiding something from me in this matter? I will still have to do it in the future. Where are the swords facing each other? Jia Yan felt that if he was also that evolved beast, then Daphne would not be friendly to him, but he believed in him so much and wanted to fight alongside him. In fact, what Jia Yan didn't expect was that Daphne was indeed not born in this imperial interstellar civilization. This was one factor, but there was another factor, and that was that she had not yet regarded Jia Yan as that kind of person. Regarding the idea of a powerful evolutionary beast, Jia Yan is indeed not powerful now. Not to mention the starry sky beast that all powerful civilizations are afraid of. Even a small aircraft can kill him, so Daphne feels that such giant mosquitoes are still within the controllable range. And she really has no fighting power left in her hands, so she urgently needs his power. This is called seeking medical treatment indiscriminately. However, Jia Yan himself has no intention of doing anything bad to her for the time being. What he is doing now is to seize this opportunity and frantically absorb everything he needs. Information about the universe, information about combat effectiveness. More importantly, there is information about how he can be promoted to a more powerful monster in the future. Daphne can satisfy him with all these. With these, what else does he ask for? Presumably, she won't ask me to fight a battle that is completely uncertain, right? Anyway, I will wait slowly and try to digest everything she gave me during this time. However, if something dangerous happens in the future, we can only act according to circumstances. Jia Yan didn't remember that he had promised this woman that he would help her. The other party just made such a move because he was sure that he couldn't leave the aircraft, but Jia Yan didn't want to just sacrifice his life for her. Although there is no shelter from the aircraft, is a huge problem. But since she needs her own fighting power, then the place where she fights cannot be a vacuum environment, right? Jia Yan is a big mosquito with strong analytical skills. He doesn't think that the other party has chosen him. He would let himself fight a battle without the ability to fight back at all, if he couldn't even breathe or fly. Then why go to such great lengths to bring him into the vacuum of this universe? Therefore, he can determine that this matter may be extremely dangerous. But it shouldn't be that he can't protect himself at all. But before that, I must improve my combat effectiveness even more. Since I can't absorb matter on this aircraft, I will quickly absorb the remaining process of this mutation. There will also be some differences in combat effectiveness. A small bonus is enough, Jia Yan thought with his compound eyes. Jia Yan doesn't need to eat. The mutation effects and energy left in his body now seem to be working. So his energy is still enough. The characteristic that large mosquitoes do not need to eat shows its advantage at this time. It seems that Daphne needs to eat. Jia Yan once saw her walk out of the room with food in her mouth and come here to watch Jia Yan's study progress. Time is spent in days like this. On the Earth side, what happened to my family, what happened to the metal monsters, and what happened to the entire human race? When he first left the Earth, Jia Yan still thought about these issues from time to time, but in the depths of the universe, these thoughts were slowly abandoned. After all, even if he thinks about it, he can't get the answer, so he might as well continue doing what he can do in front of him honestly. If he doesn't strengthen himself and goes out to die, then the Earth really has nothing to do with him. So Jia Yan is working hard to improve his strength. I am a big mosquito that came out of the Earth. I come from the Earth, which is a beautiful planet. Finally, Jia Yan's expressive ability has improved dramatically. But this is only limited to a few words and sentences. The way brainwaves are spoken is extremely difficult, especially the pronunciation of syllables. Jia Yan cannot describe the difficulty of this. If he really wanted to compare it, it would be like a person in a house full of barrels. Knocking a wooden barrel is a syllable, and there are thousands of these wooden barrels, each of which seems to have a different syllable. You have to keep running up and down the building to knock the syllable correctly. And this is how mental pronunciation becomes difficult. Because even if you have learned how to activate power, there are still countless ways to activate power through syllables, which require you to memorize them by rote. Otherwise, it will be impossible to pronounce the syllables. So Jia Yan is still working hard. However, during this period, he looked slightly at the metal space with his compound eyes. This action is extremely covered. Jia Yan knew that Daphne had a way of observing him, so he had to be very careful in his next attempt. He definitely doesn't believe in this Daphne, so he needs to have a trump card. Daphne seemed to think that it was enough for him to master the mental method of talking to her within a month. But after Jia Yan's own study, he found that there was a lot more he could do. The textbook in his hand also includes teaching on the basic method of converting brain power into attack power. Since learning pronunciation is not something that can be accomplished in a moment, why not use the remaining time to learn the power of offensive brain waves? This is what Jia Yan thinks. So after Jia Yan looked at the possible angles nearby to observe him, the strange light in his compound eyes took on a slightly different color. At this time, the big mosquito is conducting new research on the power of brain waves in his brain. Compared to when I was learning a language, at the beginning, it seemed to me that the brain wave power was activated in a somewhat irregular way, so the brain power was consumed faster. But those powers are actually exerted, so then where is this power consumed? Can I quickly master the so-called brainwave power? Jia Yan was reading a book, analyzing whether he had the ability to quickly learn the power of brainwaves. However, this kind of thing cannot be figured out by oneself in a moment, so Jia Yan secretly began to exercise in his own way. What Daphne doesn't know is that she is paying attention to Mr. Giant Mosquito all the time. At this time, some secret actions were taking place right under his nose. And it seems to be trying to further study the power of brain waves. You must know that she gradually mastered the attack method using brainwave power after learning the pronunciation of brainwave power for a long time. This kind of thing is clearly written in the textbook. Brainwave power is a matter of perception. If you don't feel that you have reached the level of releasing attacks, then even if you reluctantly learn it, there will be no gain. She didn't think it was possible for giant mosquitoes to conduct research on attack methods in such a short period of time, so she didn't think of the possibility at all. She never imagined that Jia Yan was already thinking about how to conduct research on brainwave attacks. He needs a little backhand, even if this attack method may not be too lethal for him for a while, but after all, it is a skill with unlimited potential, so he must master it as soon as possible. Jia Yan didn't know why, but he always felt that his brainwave power was not very suitable for learning sonic pronunciation. Even in such a short period of time, he learned a lot of syllables, which surprised Daphne, but he himself felt lame. Instead, when I saw the basic teaching materials on simple brainwave attack methods behind pronunciation teaching, Jia Yan had a strange feeling at that time. He felt that the most suitable way for him was to use his brainwave power to attack. So at this time, he is studying how to convert his brainwave power into tangible power. Buzz buzz. A faint sound appeared in the air. This is Jia Yan causing vibrations in the air, causing the air to vibrate a bit. Daphne, who was on the other side of the space, heard the sound and looked curiously at the big mosquito on the monitor. She thought that the big mosquito had passed the beginner stage and would no longer make such a breaking sound that shook the air. I didn't expect it would still make such a sound. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 271. It seems that he is researching new pronunciation methods. I was like this for a while. I questioned that the things in the teaching materials were not optimized enough, and always thought that I could figure out the best solution for myself. But in the end, I finally understood that the things in the teaching materials were not optimized enough. The plan was researched by countless seniors in the empire, and it is definitely not comparable to the plan that I randomly researched. However, it is not a bad thing that he is so eager to learn, at least he will have a deep understanding of how to use brain waves. Daphne thought that Big Mosquito was still studying the brainwave application method for pronunciation, but what she didn't know was that Jia Yan was actually studying something further behind. Since she always thought that even if giant mosquito it's really a so-called evolved beast, and it's impossible to learn the advanced use of brainwaves in one fell swoop. Buzz buzz. Jia Yan looked at the book he was holding in his front feet. The air seems to be vibrating around the books. The book trembled a little, but after his strength relaxed, the trembling stopped. This attempt failed. It's okay, this is just the first time. I never thought that I could succeed the first time. Even if I succeed once 100, no, 1,000 times, it's enough. Jia Yan's compound eyes were indifferent, and he looked at the direction of the metal wall. He was worried that Daphne would notice what he was doing, but she didn't show up, which meant that she didn't know about it at all, or even if she noticed what he was doing, she wouldn't point it out. Jia Yan continued to use the brainwave attack methods in the textbook. Every attempt seems to only make the air around the book vibrate, but in short, it does not give the air a feeling of power. He seems to be doing the same pronunciation method, but he is just directing the power of moving the air to a place farther away from the body. It doesn't matter. I already have a feeling. If I keep trying, I will definitely have a chance of success. Jia Yan didn't even know how many times he had tried. Time was passing quickly, just when Jia Yan could hardly tell how much time had passed. He has been reading books. Suddenly I felt the book in my hand. A page of paper moved slightly. Then, under his gaze, the page began to move slowly, seemingly with great difficulty. Gradually, it turns the page. It was as if an invisible finger was slowly flipping through it. Moreover, the strength of this finger does not seem to be very strong, or it may be said that the finger has not mastered the way to use strength at all, and it just starts to tremble. But Jia Yan at this time. There is an extremely bright light in the compound eyes. He knew, even if it was such a simple action. It also means that his first step was successful. How to use the power of brainwaves. He actually made huge progress in such a short period of time. His ability to act is not limited to interfering with sounds in the air. And he can also use his brainwave power to interfere with physical things. This is simply an unimaginable progress. But there is still some way to go before converting it into attack. After all, I am not yet able to perfectly control power, and the total amount of my brainwave power does not seem to be enough. Even if it can be converted into attack power, it's also a very small amount of power, not enough to play a role in the war. Jia Yan was thinking about the progress and shortcomings of his brainwave power, but the feeling of weakness in his mind was transmitted to him extremely strongly. It's time to take a break again. This power is definitely a double-edged sword. If the user does not master it well, he will suffer great harm, and the injured place will be the brain. Once there is an injury, it is not a trivial matter. So you must take a good rest and don't act recklessly. Jia Yan quickly knelt down. At this time, he didn't know if Daphne had noticed his abnormal situation. If the other party knew that he was training brainwave power, there was nothing he could do. It is probably impossible for the other party to think that he can develop the power of brainwave combat in a short period of time. In fact, Daphne on the other side looked like a real human girl at this time. She was wearing a metal object like a motorcycle helmet on her head, but this object even covered her eyes. The corners of his exposed mouth were slightly curved, as if he had seen something happy. So she didn't see Jia Yan's little moves? It took her a long time to take off the equipment on her head. When we get to this place, we finally have some signal and can connect to the Empire's network. Although the delay is severe and the speed is extremely slow, at least we can read some simple news and information. There was an expression of extreme longing on her face. At that time, she fully expressed her yearning for the so-called Empire. Mr. Giant Mosquito seems to be tired and resting, but it doesn't take long to get there, probably 10 days at most. Since the distance between here and the Empire's signal base is not that far, our destination is not the Empire. The signal base is the signal transmitting base of the Asturian civilization, so I won't go to the Empire's signal base. Daphne looked at the cockpit where she was, which was transparent, like glass. Things. The cosmic scene outside is pitch black, but visible to the naked eye. In a distant place, there is an extremely huge irregular thing, like an asteroid, floating in space. That is the signal base of her empire. At this time, this base may be in working condition for a rare time. There is a light flickering, which is dazzling in this empty universe without a trace of light. It entered a short-term working state because of Defuni's previous online behavior. As long as Defuni drives the aircraft out of this space, he will continue to enter a deep sleep state. Although she was extremely reluctant, Defuni still stuck to her job and quickly drove the aircraft away from the signal base. Soon after driving away from this area, Defuni's face gradually became solemn. She knew that the war was about to begin. The outcome may depend on whether Mr. Giant Mosquito can really help her. After all, according to her own analysis, her winning rate is not high. Without the help of other external forces, she is bound to lose. Otherwise, even if she is no longer a native of the Empire, facing a rumored evolved beast, it is impossible for her to get help from him, right? But at this time, Jia Yan's progress was progressing at an extremely fast pace without the knowledge of this alien who seemed to look like a female from Earth. Day by day, night by night, Jia Yan is quickly using his brainwave power. Gradually transform into your own external force. When flipping through the pages, in order to prevent Daphne from discovering anything unusual, he also assisted his front feet in making a fake turning the book motion. But if you watch carefully, you will know that when he was flipping through it, his front feet did not touch the paper at all, but were almost a few millimeters away, and the paper was slowly turning. Jia Yan moved very carefully to ensure that Defuni did not notice it. The darkness in the universe is the kind of absolute darkness that can draw people's eyes in. Looking from the outside, there seem to be dots of stars in this darkness. It seems that in the darkness, there are countless small eyes, staring at and observing their creatures. Sometimes when Jia Yan looks at the absolute darkness outside, he seems to fall into that absolute darkness and become silent. He didn't know what he was thinking, but he always felt a little emotional. So I just looked at the outside world like that. No matter how fast the aircraft is, the surrounding scenery remains almost unchanged. That kind of fast and slow feeling makes people feel like they want to vomit blood, which is extremely nauseating. So Jia Yan stopped looking at the scenery outside. He didn't know that he had been away from the Earth for many months, what the scene on the Earth was like now, and whether his family was safe on the Earth. Anyway, at this time, he didn't know anything about it. I can't help you. He doesn't even know if he can save his life during this trip, so what he has to face now is how to save his life, and then it will be a matter for his family. There seemed to be no concept of time in the aircraft. In the small space, Jia Yan had no memory of how much time had passed. He only knew that he had finally digested the remaining effects of the mutation in this aircraft at full speed. For the aircraft under his feet, he seemed to have a little more absorption, but he completely suppressed his desire. Come down. Moreover, he has gradually mastered no less than 200 words in terms of pronunciation and vocabulary. These 200 words are what Jia Yan himself thinks are often used in daily conversations, but most of them he just remembers how to pronounce them, so if you want to say it out, it may be bumpy, and it is probably impossible to say it quickly. As for the attack method of brainwave power that he has secretly trained, he has been able to completely lift the book he is looking at. If he is brave enough to try it, Jia Yan can even try it, right? You can throw it away at once. I don't know how powerful this power is, or what the effect of practicing for a month is. It can only be seen in actual combat. At this time, he thought it would continue for some time. The metal wall that hadn't been opened for a long time suddenly made a strange noise. Click, click, click. The metal walls separate the two sides, forming a human-shaped passage. There is a girl with a good figure inside, showing her proud figure inside. Daphne. Mr. Giant Mosquito, are you ready? Our destination is almost here. She stepped out of the space inside and came to Jia Yan.